Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Today I'm going to read the book Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, Chapter 10, This Momentous Hour of Need. Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there may be so many literary discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with our all faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty, great so much now badly needed. From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Volume 1. Bhaktivedanta Swami, accompanied by some of the Keshavji Math's devotees, made a short preaching tour of Agra, Kanpur, Jhansi, and Delhi. But he was soon back in his own place at the Vamshi Gopalji temple. No one called him Abhay Babu any longer. Even among friends, it was Swamiji or Maharaj, and people often addressed him as Swami Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. People readily recognized him as a sadhu and offered respect. Yet his basic problems remained. He wanted to write and print, but he had no money. He wanted to broadcast the message of Godhead, but few were willing to listen. Such things hadn't been changed by his becoming a Swami. When a librarian advised Bhaktivedanta Swami to write books, they were permanent, whereas newspapers were read once and thrown away. He took it that his spiritual master was speaking through this person. Then an Indian army officer who liked back to Godhead suggests the same thing. Bhaktivedanta Swami took it as a revelation from his spiritual master. As a dependent servant, constantly meditating on the desires of his transcendental master and seeking his guidance, Bhaktivedanta Swami felt his spiritual master's reciprocal blessings and personal presence. More and more, he was feeling confidential contact with Sri Bhaktisiddhanta, and now he was feeling an inspiration to write books. He considered Srimad Bhagavatam because it was the most important and authoritative Vaishnava scripture. Although Bhagavad Gita was the essence of all Vedic knowledge, presented in a brief ABC fashion, Srimad Bhagavatam was elaborate, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakura had both written Bengali commentaries on the Bhagavatam. In fact, most of the great Vaishnava acharyas of the past had commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya himself had recommended Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Vedic literature. An English translation and commentary for this book could one day change the hearts of the entire world, and he could publish even a few books, his preaching would be enhanced. He could go abroad with confidence and not appear empty handed. One day, Gaurachand Goswami, proprietor of the Radha Damodar temple, approached Bhaktivedanta Swami, inviting him to come live at the Radha Damodar temple, being the eternal home of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. It would be more suitable for his writing and translating. Bhaktivedanta Swami was interested. He had never stopped his regular visits there, and he always felt inspired in the presence of the Samadhi tombs of the great leaders of Lord Chaitanya's movement, Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. But when he went to look at the two available rooms, he found them in poor repair. They had not been maintained or lived in for many years. Not wanting to miss the opportunity, however, Bhaktivedanta Swami agreed to take the rooms at 5 rupees per month. He estimated that for a little more than 500 rupees, he could have electricity installed and extensive repairs made, and when it was finished, he could move in. Bhaktivedanta Swami saw the invitation as auspicious, and living there would complement his new project of presenting Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Of all Vrindavana's temples, Radha Damodar had the largest collection of original writings by the six Goswamis and their followers. More than 2,000 separate manuscripts, many of them 300, some even 400 years old. Bhaktivedanta Swami looked forward to residing there someday and serving in the company of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami. For now, he would remain at the Vamshikopalji's temple, and with whatever money he could collect, he would gradually repair the rooms. It was an important maxim of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's that a preacher should go to the cities and not remain in the seclusion of a holy place. So, in that spirit, Bhaktivedanta Swami continued commuting to Delhi, even though to him it was a hell, and even though he had no fixed residence there. Often he was taken in by businessmen who felt obliged on the basis of Indian culture. A good man, if he wanted to be favored by God, should accommodate the sadhus and give them meals and a place to stay. But the vision of such pious men was a sentimental Hinduism, and their receptions were artificial. They could not really appreciate Bhaktivedanta Swami's work, and Bhaktivedanta Swami was not of a mind to impose himself upon such host. Then he spoke with Mr. Hitsaran Sharma, manager of the Radha Press. In the past, Mr. Sharma had printed flyers and stationery for the League of Devotees, and Bhaktivedanta Swami had stayed in Mr. Sharma's house on occasion. Mr. Sharma introduced Bhaktivedanta Swami to Pandit Sri Krishna Sharma, a caste Brahmana and active religionist, secretary to the century-old Delhi Religious Society, Sri Naval Prem Sabha. Out of sympathy for Bhaktivedanta Swami's literary labors, Krishna Pandit gave him a room in his Radha Krishna temple in the Chippivada neighborhood of Old Delhi. Now, Bhaktivedanta Swami would have a permanent office in Delhi. The train from Mathura would arrive as at the old Delhi station near Chandni Chowk, the broad avenue down which poured a river of workday traffic, rickshaws, bicycle riders, sometimes a dozen abreast, autos in lesser numbers, men running on foot, pulling heavy carts, and beasts of burden, donkeys, oxen, and an occasional camel or elephant carrying heavy loads and being driven by men with whips in their hands. From the intensely busy Chandni Chowk, Bhaktivedanta Swami would take the short walk to Chipiwada, past the Red Fort, keeping the Gauri Shankara temple on his left, and proceeding along his side street past the large imposing Jama Mosque. Near Chipiwada, the streets would become narrow. Chipiwada had been a Muslim neighborhood until the Indian Pakistan partition of 1947, when thousands of Punjabi Hindus had settled there. Chipiwada was part of a mixed Hindu-Muslim neighborhood, so crowded with the people that cars were not allowed to enter the street. Only ox carts and rickshaws could penetrate the narrow, crowded lanes, and in some areas the lanes were planted with iron posts to keep rickshaws out. Even a bicycle rider would have created havoc amongst the densely packed crowds of shoppers and workers who moved along the streets and lanes. Side streets led to other side streets, lanes so narrow that the second floor balconies and on opposite sides of the street were only inches apart, practically forming a roof over the street, so that a pedestrian could glimpse only the narrowest patch of sky. Private yard shops and alleys become almost indistinguishable from the public thoroughfares. Although most shops bore signs in Hindi with subheadings in English, some bore the curvy scripts of Arabic, and women dressed in black with veiled faces were a common sight. In the heart of this intense city life was the narrow entrance of Krishna Pandit's Radha Krishna temple with a plaque of the demigod Ganesha and a row of nesting pigeons just above its simple arch door. Here we can see that Abbay's struggle for preaching, traveling to various cities, and publishing books without adequate funds. But still, he followed his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's will. Slowly, people started giving Abbay more respect, addressing him as Swami Bhaktivedanta Ji. They also recognized him as a sadhu. He went on short preaching to different cities, but soon returned back to the Vamshi Gopalji temple, still facing the challenge of wanting to write and preach without sufficient funds or audience. Inspired by his spiritual masters, perceived guidance through a librarian and an army officer, he decided to write an English translation and commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, believing it could profoundly impact the whole world. He accepted an invitation to move to the historically significant Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, the home of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami, for better access to manuscripts. Though he had to stay initially at the Vamshi Gopal temple and raise money for repair. Meanwhile, adhering to his spiritual master's advice to preach in cities, he continued to commute to Delhi, eventually securing a permanent room and office in the Radha Krishna temple in Chippewada, a large crowded neighborhood in Delhi. Hare Krishna.